So as a pediatrician, I'm sure you have seen it all when it comes to the parents who bring their kids in for checkups and whatnot. So what kind of parenting styles do you think you see on a daily basis?
Well, I kind of feel like parenting styles kind of come into fashion and out of fashion, almost like diet fads. As we've talked about attachment parenting and authoritarian and authoritative and permissive, and there's baby wise and Berberizing your child. And so there's a whole potpourri of options for parents to choose from.
And people seem to feel very strongly about their method of parenting. They seem to adhere to the principles very tightly.
Which can be very difficult. And I don't know about you, but before I became a parent, I had a pretty good sense of what type of parent I wanted to be, based on how I was raised, things I liked that my parents did with me, things I didn't like, friends that I had met, patients that I had seen in clinic. I would see a kid and I would never let my child do that. But once you have a child, you realize that you can't really pigeonhole yourself into one parenting style. So I want to caution parents not to decide, well, this is the kind of parent that I'm going to be, without having some flexibility, because you may end up feeling as though you're disappointing yourself and you're disappointing your child.
It really is a work in progress, I think. But we heard Chloe talk about how strongly she felt about attachment parenting, and then we hear there's a whole school of mothers who have the cry it out philosophy. Of course, we have heard of Ferberizing your baby, letting your baby learn to comfort himself or herself without going to them all the time, which I think maybe sounds like a real extreme compared to attachment parenting. Is there any evidence that it's bad to let a baby cry it out and learn to self-comfort?
There's no scientific evidence that the crying out or Ferberizing method causes any sort of health problems for a child later on, whether it's mental or physical. And remember, we're not talking about neglect. I mean, parents who neglect their children and leave them unattended for long periods of time, and they're crying and they're not well tended for, yes, that can have serious psychological consequences. But sort of going through a systematic process of trying to train your child how to soothe themselves to sleep by leaving them alone for 10 minutes, then maybe 15 minutes, then 20 minutes, but standing by the door to make sure the baby's okay and isn't choking, that's not going to have any deleterious effects.
There's even a free-range style of parenting, which takes it a step further, where kids can kind of do what they want. They can ride the subways when they're 6 or 7 years old.
Right.
What is that? Where did that come from? That seems extreme too.
This is a backlash to sort of the helicopter parenting method, where parents will sort of let the leash way out. So yes, there was that child who was able to ride the New York subway system without a parent. These are people who want to go back 30, 40 years when we were growing up, where I used to ride my bicycle around my neighborhood. My parents didn't always know where I was, and they didn't really worry about me. Well, times have changed, and we've learned through the years that there are things that we should be doing now that we didn't do years ago. Seat belts, helmets, car seats. I mean, I didn't have any of those things in the 1970s. So I understand free-range parenting, wanting to help build kids' self-esteem and independence and let them learn on their own, but you have to do it in a way that's safe, that your kids are not going to get into trouble.
So when it comes to overparenting and not wanting to be a helicopter parent or do too much for your kids, what advice would you give parents?
It's hard. And I have friends. I have a very good friend who I think has a tendency to be a helicopter mom, and when I see her kind of driving her son crazy, you need to put another layer on, it's too cold, and he's like, Mom, I'm okay, no, put this jacket on. I just go up to her and I go, chip, 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 like that. Tell her, like, it's gonna be okay, he only needs one layer. But I think if you recognize that you can overparent and that can be a problem and that can affect your child later on,
that
you can
sometimes
step back,
yeah,
step back and say, I probably went a little too far.